Hello Electroheads and welcome to a piece of automotive history. No, don't laugh, I'm serious. This is the Nissan Leaf, and before that American meme lord came along and started selling road legal spaceships, this was the most popular electric car in the world. In the decade since this car first came out, yes, decade, over 500,000 Leaves have been sold worldwide, but a lot can change in 10 years, and this car faces much stiffer competition today than it did before. 10 years ago, if you wanted a zero emissions mode of transport, your options were a Nissan Leaf or running. Today, there are almost 100 mass-produced EVs to choose from, and many of them are direct competitors to the Leaf. So the burning question is, has this old dog learnt enough new tricks to still be able to compete at the dog show, or has it fallen behind younger, newer dogs with more range? Today, we're going to find out, but first, be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment down below to let me know which car you'd like to see reviewed on the channel next. Now, before we go any further, allow me to just very quickly explain how big of a deal this car once was. Back in 2010, the most popular electric car in the UK was something called the G-Wiz. And it was, and I say this having had a go in one myself, a f***ing death trap. The entire car felt like it was made out of egg cartons. The brake lever didn't seem to be attached to anything, and the windscreen was licking distance from your face. And the range when new, a very optimistically claimed 50 miles. And you know what? People bought them anyway, because some people are so dedicated to reducing their carbon footprint that they are willing to accept major inconvenience and very real danger for the cause. Seriously, if someone tells you that they once owned a G-Wiz, do not mess with that person, because they are willing to die for their beliefs. And then the Nissan Leaf came along, and suddenly here was an electric car with decent cabin space and a big boot. Here was an electric car with, wait for it, basic creature comforts. Here was an electric car where, in the event of a head-on collision, the crumple zone wasn't just your face. People went mad for them, and rightly so. I think the jump from G-Wiz to Nissan Leaf is more significant than the one from Nissan Leaf to Tesla Model S. The point I'm trying to make here is that A, this car is a genuine motoring icon, and B, the bar was so low when this car first came out. Anyway, enough with the history lesson. What's a Leaf like in 2021? Well, at a glance, feels a lot like being in 2010. This cabin, despite the recent refresh, does still feel a little bit long in the tooth to me. Although, granted, that's probably at least a little bit because I just spent some time in a Tesla before this and, well, everything feels old after that. The infotainment works fine, although it is a little bit sluggish and clunky, and the cabin in general, I don't know, I just feel like it's a bit bland, despite efforts to cheer things up with a bit of leather and some blue details. One thing I won't complain about in here is the abundance of physical buttons. Now, they're not very pretty. In fact, they kind of look like they're from a 2002 Vauxhall Astra, but I know a lot of people still prefer having actual physical buttons for things like climate control instead of having to go into menus and find buttons that are hidden. To those people, this cabin will feel nice and familiar. It's also very impressively well equipped in here. This is the range topping model, the most expensive one. So I've got heated seats, heated steering wheel, Bose sound system, radar guided cruise control. Although if I'm being really honest with you, and I'm embarrassed to admit this, I cannot figure out how to turn this cruise control on. I know it's these buttons here, but how do I make it start? And what's this blue button? Force field? And just while I'm complaining, one thing that really has bugged me in here, what is this? What is this? This looks like a bike saddle for someone with one arse cheek missing. Truthfully, the exterior styling isn't much to write home about either. I may be alone in this, but I liked the look of the original Leaf. It was strange and blobby, but it looked different from anything else on the road, and I liked that. With this facelift, Nissan has very deliberately given the Leaf a more nondescript face, and I think that's a shame. That said, I do understand that it makes sense to style a car as inoffensively as possible if your intention is to sell lots of them. ID3 and microwave Mazda being other examples of that. Thankfully, one area where the Leaf has improved is range. Now, 10 years ago, the original Leaf had about 120 miles of the stuff, which at the time was industry leading. Today, an entry-level Leaf will cost you about 27 grand after the government EV grant, and that'll give you about 138 miles of range. While this one I have here, the E Plus, starts at 32.5 grand and gives you 239 miles of range. And if you look at what else is out there in the sort of reasonably priced electric family car segment, that sounds about right. A Hyundai Ioniq is perfectly in between the two Leaf models in terms of both range and price. A Kia e-Niro costs about £1.5 grand more than the most expensive Leaf, but has another 40 miles of range. The outlier here is actually the entry-level VW ID3, which costs about 29 grand, putting it in between the two Leaves, but it has 260 miles of range. In other words, the Nissan Leaf has just about managed to keep up with the rest as far as range goes, but it's no longer out in front. So, the range is adequate and the cabin is fine. So far, so meh. Okay, one more complaint and then we'll move on to more positive things. The visibility, not good. The view out the back is okay, it's not too hard to park this car because it's got an excellent reversing camera, but the view out the front is awful. I sit quite high and I've got this huge rear view mirror here creating quite a serious blind spot. It feels like a bit of a letterbox windscreen, it's not especially airy in here. And the worst thing of all is I just can't tell where the corners of the car are. Because of its weird blobby shape, it actually feels a lot wider than it actually is. I'm sure you get used to this over time of Nissan Leaf ownership, but it's really annoying, especially when you consider how airy and brilliant for visibility so many other electric cars are. Okay, that's all the whinging done, but don't think that it's all bad news. The Leaf does have some redeeming qualities. It's reasonably comfortable, plenty spacious in the front and back, and the Bose sound system is excellent. But there is one particular thing about the Leaf that I really love, and it's to do with the driving experience. Driving the Nissan Leaf feels like playing a game of maximum efficiency. And what I mean by that is every time I drive this car, I feel like the car is challenging me to use as little energy as possible to get myself from A to B. Now, where am I getting that from? Well, a few places. First of all, have a look down here. There are no real driving modes in this car. There's no comfort mode. There certainly isn't a sport button. But what I do have is a button that says Eco and a button that says E-Pedal. Now, the Eco mode slightly blunts the acceleration and the performance of the car, but the car is so mellow to begin with, it really doesn't make that much of a difference. So I find myself driving everywhere with Eco mode on. What's more, when you press that Eco button, you immediately see your range here jumping up by a few extra miles, which is kind of satisfying. As for E-Pedal, that is Nissan speak for the regenerative braking system, and you'll notice there's no different strength settings, it's either on or off, and when it's on, it is strong. Again, I find myself driving everywhere with this switched on, partly because, well, one-pedal driving is really fun, but mostly because the brake lever in this car, the actual brake pedal, is horrible. It's a really stiff, nasty pedal. Part of me thinks Nissan has done this on purpose. If you need to use the brake pedal, it means you're driving inefficiently, and your punishment is a yucky pedal. And then here in the gauge cluster, there's something else encouraging me to be efficient. I've got this little digital dial in front of me, and it sort of replicates a rev counter in an ICE car. It shows me how much energy I'm using when I'm accelerating, and it shows me how much energy I'm recuperating when I use the regen brake. And most electric cars have one of these, but in the Leaf, it's really prominently displayed right there in the middle. And there's something really pleasing about watching that needle drop down into the cooling blue to let me know that I am efficient AF. And there are other, even subtler clues in this car encouraging you to be efficient. The stereo, the Bose stereo, is proudly displayed as being from the energy efficient series. On the air conditioning down here, the biggest, most prominent button, the auto button, because that's all you really need. The heated seats and the heated steering wheel, not especially good. They only heat the outside of the wheel and the middle of the seat. In any other car, that would annoy me, but in the Leaf, it just sort of feels right. You know, no need to be wasteful. If I lose an arse cheek to frostbite, I've got a seat. The upshot of all this is that the Leaf is a genuinely fun car to drive. It's a very different kind of fun to the rear-wheel drive instant torque thrills offered by other EVs, but this particular brand of fun can be enjoyed 100% of the time, not just when a bit of clear road presents itself. And what's more, because this car encourages efficient driving, you as the driver will get more range out of it than you would a different car with the same size battery. It's genius. Conclusion. Is the Nissan Leaf still relevant? Is there still a solid reason to buy one of these cars in 2021? On paper, probably not. If the Leaf was still the range king, if it had the same 300-mile range of the Kia e-Niro but cost $1,000 less, it would still be the common sense family EV of choice. But it doesn't, and truthfully, I think you'd really struggle to find any one area where the Leaf is the best still. If you want the best all-rounder, you're better off with a VW ID3. If you want the most range for your money, you're better off with an e-Niro or a Kona. And if you want a little bit more style and charisma, you're better off with a Mokka-e. I'm just not completely sure where this car fits in anymore. But with all that being said, buying a car is something we do with our hearts as well as our heads. So if all the stuff I said about making efficiency fun really appeals to you, by all means have a Leaf. It's not the one I'd choose, but it's still a solid and well-rounded EV. What the Leaf needs is a refresh, another one, a bigger one. And my hope is that once Nissan is done unveiling the Ariya, which I am actually really excited for, it looks proper, that they'll turn their attention back to the Leaf and give it the revamp it deserves. I don't want them to kill this car off. I would hate to see it die. But regardless of what the future holds for the Leaf, there are lessons to be learned from this car. What I really like about the Leaf is that it is unapologetically an electric car, and I'm not seeing enough of that these days. Too many car makers are pandering. They're trying to make their EVs seem just like their ICE cars so as not to confuse customers. Like, people are going to think their cars are powered by ghosts if they seem too electric-y. The thing is, EVs are not the same as ICE cars, and the sooner we stop trying to make them seem the same, the sooner we get to enjoy the benefits of electric power in its entirety. So there we have it, people, the Nissan Leaf. A bit of a dinosaur, but a lovable one. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you soon.